Hello and welcome to this third episode of Random Chess Puzzles. So in the previous two, the rating range was 500 to 1,000. So I'll bump it up a little bit from 750 to 1250 here. So solve along with me. You can pause at any time if you need more time to think. It is Black's turn to move here, and White has just brought his rook up to d6 here, creating a threat with these two rooks working in tandem, maybe threats to check our king. So what can we do here? All right, let's take a look. Now the first thing to do when you're trying to solve puzzles or tactics, any time, even in games, is check for threats against the king first, then pieces, then pawns. So if it's our turn, we want to see if we have any checks against the king. And it looks like this rook could slide up here. So I'm guessing that is the start to this problem. We check the king. Now, of course, if he blocks, then we just take the rook. So the king would have to move down here to c2. And then what do we do after that? We check again. Then he would just move back up there. So are we going for a draw maybe? So let's take a closer look at this. Rook to g1 check. Oh, the king can move down here, and then our rook can move here to c1. So hopefully you found that. Rook to g1, king to c2, rook to c1 check here, driving the king down to here. And then we could check the king again and then pick off this rook here. So maybe that is the way to go. Let's proceed here. And when you're solving tactics problems, you should try and do as much in your head as possible to solve the problem. Kind of like in a real game, you can't once you move in a real game, and if it's the wrong move, then you could end up in trouble and losing. All right, so we plan to check and then take this pawn. So here we go. Or excuse me, not take the pawn, but take the rook. And then here he captures, and now we can just go there and capture. And so now, usually you don't want to trade even more pieces when you're behind in material, but White would have been losing anyway. All right, that was a 930 rated puzzle. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, what was this? A capture here? All right, well, it looks like there's not many choices here. So as I said, the first thing you want to do is look for threats against the king, any checks. And of course, we have this check. Now, the king has to protect this knight, so his only option is to move down here. But then we can pin that knight to the king and then pick the knight off. So check, pin, and take, and then this rook and king would be enough to checkmate. So hopefully you found that one, 750 rated. On to the next one. Okay, the rook is just moved here. What do you think White should play? Hopefully you found the answer here. This one is more simple. So as I always say, look for threats against the king first. So any checks. Now, obviously this bishop could check, but we have a rook-queen battery here that can deliver a checkmate. So hopefully you found this move, queen to h8. So there we have a mate and one. Now it said that was rated 1220, which maybe these ratings aren't so accurate because that seems like a lot easier than a 1220 rated problem. since it was just a mate in one. All right, well, I hope you found that. Let's move on. Rook to e6. So taking control of the open E file. But we want to go after the king if possible. So how is, or what is the best way to do that? All right, look for checks. So the queen looks like the only piece that can check the opponent's king. This pawn is doing a good job of blocking escape squares for this king. But the king wouldn't want to go here anyway, because then the rook could maybe pin the queen to the king. All right, so looks like this move, queen to b8 up here, check. Now there is a blocking move. So if once we go up here, the rook is going to block. Now we could just pick off this pawn, but when you see a decent, an okay move, it's good to look for a better move. So let's take a look here. Queen checks, rook blocks, queen checks here. The rook can't block, or we just pick it off. Now the other option is to go here, but then we could fork not fork, but pin the queen to the king. But how can our opponent counter if we do that? So once again, queen up to b8, check, rook blocks, queen here to d6 to check. Now, if the rook tries to block, we can just pick it off, with the queen, not with the pawn, because then, that would be a check, I guess. So either way, but we'd probably just pick it off with the queen and then go for a mate. So queen check, blocked by the rook, queen check on d6. So if the queen or king tries to run, well then what? If we pin the queen to the king with our rook, then we have a possible check. Oh no, he can't because he'll be pinned. All right, so let's do it. Check, check, and a pin here. Then we can pick off the queen. So there we go. That was the 830 rated problem. On to the next one. Okay, I try to do 20 problems, but if they get more complicated and the video drags out too long, maybe I'll do less, but I'll shoot for 20. All right, we have an attack on our queen. Blocking our check on the king. So our only options are to move our queen, capture. So move the queen or capture. If we capture and the king recaptures, then it's a pawn race. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get here. He'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get there. But we'll go first. So maybe that's the way to go. All right, I think that's probably the way to go. Even more annoying. No, that wouldn't work. So yes, we'll just go and capture, and then it's a race, and we'll get there first and be able to stop his pawn from promoting. All right, well, hopefully you found that. And that was the 860 rated problem. On to the next one. So that was a good little end game puzzle there. All right, what is this? The knight just captured here, attacking our knight with the queen and the knight combination, which does not look too good. Oh, but we have a great counter here. So hopefully you found this. Take a look, and what would you play here? All right, pause the video if you need more time. But, when you do these puzzles, look for those attacks on the king first. And hopefully you found this queen check. Queen to e3 check. When the king is in check, he either has to block, capture, or run. So no way to block, no way to capture, and he has to run. But then that'll allow our queen to go up here to e7 with another check, forcing him into the corner, and then we can capture his rook with a mate. So check, he runs, check, and mate. All right, 980 rated. Let's move on. Okay, king up to d6. What do we have now? Well, okay. Pause if you need more time. We're limited on material here, but we do have more pawns. So we have to use our pawns to our advantage. And how can we do that? Well, this rook is trying to hold back these two pawns. If only we could go here to a7, attacking the rook and threatening to promote. And if the rook captured, we could move forward. But the problem with a7 is this bishop could go ahead and pick off that pawn. So if we could get rid of the bishop. So luckily we have the rook capture here, and then our pawns can move forward. But let's just double check. Capture, king captures, pawn moves up, capture, and promotion. So there we go. All right, and we're winning in this position with the queen versus the rook here. Even though there's a check, we could, go to safety here and then start harassing the king out in the wide open area here. All right, 970 rated. On to the next one. Problem number 8. What did we have here? Was that just a capture, or did this rook just move back? Okay. Well, what do we have against our opponent? Is there any way to go after his king? It does not look like there are any immediate ways to threaten that king. So, what else do we have here? All right, this one could be a little more tricky because there's a lot going on. It's kind of a messy position. Material-wise, we have a queen that they do not have. So we both have two bishops, a knight, but they have the two rooks versus our queen. And then pawns, it's 5 against 6. So white is actually ahead here with 2 rooks and a pawn worth 11 points versus a queen versus 9 points, or 9 pawns. All right. What can we do? Well, the next thing to do, if there's no way to get after the king, although this kind of involves the king. If the rook wasn't here, we'd be able to check. But even if we do that, now we would be pinning this rook to the king, and it could end up trapped. Although this bishop could protect, And then what do we do? Uh, hmm. All right. That seems to be the way to go. The problem is this right here. Maybe we can attack this rook as well. So this one seems a little bit trickier, but I'm thinking maybe we start here, pinning this rook to the king. Then we go after this. Go after this rook. Although he could just go here and capture. So queen to b6. The pawn protects the rook. We do have this passed pawn. So perhaps we start running that passed pawn up. Problem is this bishop could cause issues. So maybe we sacrifice this. All right, a lot going on. This is a little bit of a more tricky problem. So the obvious move is just to immediately pin this rook. The bishop would protect. How do we continue then? Do we go after the bishop with this? But then it's protecting this. So maybe we have to go here, attacking. But we don't want to waste this passed pawn. So if we go here, bishop protects, we push forward. This bishop will have to stop the pawn. So then what? All right, this one's a little tricky, but that's what I'm thinking. Queen to b6 here. We'll just go ahead and move it. Okay, now the king already moved, so that doesn't make sense. So then we can just pick that off. Okay, I guess I made it way more complicated than it had to be because I thought the bishop would just protect that rook. Come on, computer. But I guess it was an 800 rated problem. All right, on to the next one. Our rook is under attack here. But do we have some way to get to this king? All right. Maybe we look for checks. So queen to c5. And pause if you want to calculate this out deeper on your own. But queen checks on c5. If the rook blocks, then we just capture the rook. We're protected by the knight and the rook. If the king goes over here, then our rook slides over and checks. And the only thing he can do is maybe block with this. All right, check, check, capture. There we go. All right, 1200 rated. On to the next problem, number 10. the knight has just moved here, forking our queen and our rook. So we have to act here. And we have to act in a hurry, it looks like. So, what should we even do here? Well, the obvious move would be to move our queen because it's under attack, but then they could pick off our rook here. But, there's got to be something a little better here. Do we have to give up our queen? That is the question. So the first thing you want to do is look at checks. So, okay. If we look at all the checks, hopefully that'll help you solve the problem. Or will it? Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and material there. So let's take a look at everything. Well, we capture the bishop. There's a discovered attack on the queen. The king can move over, protect the queen. We could trade off queens. Capture, king would recapture, and that would give us time to move our rook. And we could use that to capture this pawn. I think that'll work. So take another quick look at it. Rook captures, discovered attack on the queen, and the king's in check, so the king has to move. Oh, we could even do this. So rook captures with the discovered attack on the queen, and when the king goes to protect, we could move our rook up here, checking the king and forcing the king to capture our rook. And then we pick off the queen. Okay, he doesn't go for that anyway. So now we can just pick off the queen. So there we go. An 1120 rated problem. All right, on to the next one. Problem number 11. We have a capture here of a pawn, I believe, attacking our queen, threatening checks on our king, although our king could maybe escape up here. All right, what can we do here? Well, if we capture, rook captures, we capture again, the pawn captures, and then our king can move over and pick this off, and we should have a winning endgame with this extra pawn here. But we have something even better. So take a look at this. Hopefully you found, and another good reason that I always say the first thing you should do is look for attacks against your king. And I need to take that advice, my own advice sometimes, because especially in games, I'm looking at the pieces and I don't always look at checks against the enemy king. So queen checks, discovered attack on white's queen. So that is what we're going to do. Check and capture here. All right. Now, what could happen here? Maybe this pawn captures and starts trying to push forward, but we would be able to move our queen here, come down and block the pawn, and then try and get our king over here. All right, on to the next one. That was a 790 rated problem. Now we have what? Rooks and queen, or rook and queen here versus rook and queen. This extra passed pawn that black has here could be used to advantage. So what do we do? Well, once again, look for the checks. So obviously we don't want to go here. The king will just capture us. If we try to push the pawn, the rook will capture. So we have to go the other way. Queen to e5 check, allowing us to push the pawn on the next move. So, check. Oh, a block. Okay. Nice move there. But still, all right, that threw a wrench in the works. Huh. Okay, that was a little tricky maneuver there that I wasn't quite expecting. Okay. Now what? Now do we just move back here? Do we just move back? Do we go here and target this, but then he could just capture that? Maybe we just follow with our plan. Just promote. And then if they capture, we capture the rook. All right. Okay, that was a little tricky. So that's one reason to double check your tactics, because there could be an in-between move like that just kind of throws you off a little bit. All right, on to the next problem. Okay, we have what here? Rook to b8. And what do we do? Rook to b8. Well, our knights can check the king. That's a possibility, but then we would just exchange. He would capture, we capture. Oh, but does that lead to a mate? I think so. All right. Now we have to be careful which knight we capture with first. We want to capture with this one. That way the rook is able to move up here to d8 if the king tries to run. So check, check, and mate. All right. On to the next one. All right, white has a pawn running here, moving forward, trying to promote. But we have a good move, it looks like. We push our pawn with a discovered check. Then we can pick this off. Let's double check, make sure there aren't any tricky in-between moves. So, b4, check. King has to move. Let's say the king moves here. We pick off the rook. Their pawn can start moving forward, or trying to, or maybe the king moves up, but then that would allow our king to get in front of the pawn. All right, here we go. Check and capture. The pawn moves forward. Let's go after it, stop that promotion, and then we have this move, which really helps us. So that we can pick this pawn off, drive the king away, and get in front of the pawn here. All right, on to the next one. So what do we have here? Rooks and queen all piling up on the king. They're defending with a queen and rooks. Also, this threat of a check here, which is looking dangerous. How do we go after the king? Okay. The obvious move is capture here, maybe. Well, I don't know how obvious it is, but that's a possibility. Sacrifice. Then the king could run, though. If the king runs, then what do we do? Oh, if the king runs, then we just checkmate him with our queen. Okay, so if he captures, well then we capture with our queen, but then he can block. So maybe we have to do something better. Oh, then if he blocks, we pick this off, and that should be mate, I believe. So rook captures on h6. The king cannot run because then we would just mate him with our queen. So g takes h6. Queen takes h6 check. Rook blocks. We're able to pick off the other rook and mate. So check, check, capture with the mate there. All right, try and do 5 more problems. Let's get through these. We just had a capture here, opening up the H file towards the king. So once again, look for those checks. All right. Well, the rook could check but just be captured. Better might be the queen check. So queen captures the pawn with check. There's only one move for the king to make, and that's to go here. But then what? Then what do we do? Do we check with our rook? King can move into this hole here. And then if we check again with our queen, we'd have to go here. If the knight blocks, we just capture the knight. But the king could run to here. So maybe we check with this. All right, so let's double check everything. Queen captures with check. The king is forced to go here. Do we check with the bishop instead? Check with the bishop. Then if there's a block, we take. The king is forced to run. We check with our other rook. All right, this one's a little trickier, but looks like queen captures. The king is going to have to run to f2. And then, what are the options? Maybe check with our bishop. Knight blocks, queen checks, king runs to e2. Our other rook can check. So something like that. There we go. Oh, There, see, another reason to take another look at these problems. That move was unexpected. Okay, well, now we can pretty much just move here, be protected by the rook. That's the obvious move. And then maybe go here with our bishop, but is there anything better? Our queen is under attack, so we have to watch out for that. We also have the bishop and rook lining up, maybe getting ready to check here. So we're kind of forced to go here. Where does the king go? If the king runs here, our knight could check here. All right, we have to keep attacking because our, this threat here, although now it's blocked, unless the bishop is sacrificed. Okay, this, do we just keep attacking here? This one is a little tricky. Maybe we check. But what follow-up do we have? If the king goes up here, we just take the knight. And that's probably what we need to do. But the king would probably be forced to go here. And then what? So the knight, or excuse me, then our knight, like I said earlier, the knight comes into play. So we just keep attacking. So the knight attacks. Then what? The king probably does not want to keep moving forward because that doesn't look good. We just keep attacking. If the king moves away, we pick off the knight. So anyway, 1090 rated. Let's move on to the next one. We have 4 more. I'll try and finish these up here. So what do we want to do here? So look for attacks on the king first. Do we have any kind of attack on the king? King's pretty safe in here. I don't see any checks. Okay, what about pieces? Are there any unprotected pieces? So all the pieces are, well, this one, the rooks aren't protected, but there's not really any way to get to them at the moment. But we have contact here between these pawns. And that would be the next thing to look at. Are there any pawn captures that are any good? Well, what if we capture here and fork the bishop and the knight with our pawn? That's a possibility. But the only thing about that, this bishop could move here and threaten a mate. And looks like we could just block that with our knight. All right, here we go. And they decide to go that way instead. So we might as well just capture because we still have this threat here. So capture, and then we pick off that piece. All right, 1210 rated. Hopefully you found that. We have 3 more to do. Okay, the king was in check by our queen, just retreated. What do we have now? All right, any threats to the king? Well, the queen could check, but king would just capture us. If we capture the pawn, the queen would capture us. So Maybe we just threaten. I'm thinking we threaten the queen. So first you want to look at attacks on the king. And then if there's no way to get to the king, look at pieces. Unprotected ones. Okay, they're all protected, but we can attack the more valuable queen with our less valuable rook here, driving this queen away and threatening up the h-file with the queen here for a mate. So rook to h6, the queen has to move. Let's say the queen moves here, trying to cover this. Well, then the rook can just move up there and deliver a mate, and the queen would block his queen. So instead, he just decides to give up the queen for the rook. All right, 790 rated. We have two more problems. King was checked by our rook, just retreated. What do we do next? Well, as I like to say, look for attacks on the king first. So we have this move. Queen checks. What does the king do? The king has to run. There's no way to capture the queen or block, so the king has to run. Once that happens, we could capture with a check here. Then if they recapture, we capture again. And hopefully the king, when he retreated, went out this way. So he would be under check. He could move here. But then, we could bring our rook into the game. Or we'll just be ahead in material. Okay, here we go. Check. Capture. And now it's just a mate. So looks like they had to go out this way, and then the king would be able to escape here instead of going into the corner. But that was a 940 rated problem. The last one, we have a pawn push with check here. All right. Well, first thing to do is look for checks, and it appears that we can just capture this pawn with our queen and check the king. The king can't go here because of the knight. So the king, is there any way to block? No. Capture? No. King will have to run. And if the king runs here, we cannot go there to mate, but we could go here, driving him into the corner. All right, double check this. Capture with check. If the king goes here, we could move up here, checking. Then the king would run into the corner. Then we check again. Rook captures rook captures our queen. We capture with a mate up here. So check. Okay, so he does fall for that. So we go here and then sacrifice the queen for that mate. All right, interesting little 1130 rated queen sacrifice back rank checkmate there at the end. I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to leave comments, whatever you would like to say. And I always try and get back to people if I can. Also, please like and support the channel. Like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.